Sir, you are here on a number of counts. I'm going to read them off, and then I do want to address probable cause on these counts. You are here, sir, on 3 counts of murder in the first degree, Class 1 felonies, 19 counts of aggravated assault on officers, Class 5 felonies, 2 counts of aggravated assault, Class 6 felonies, and 1...
This is the moment Anthony Milan Ross sat in a courtroom and heard exactly what he was being charged with. 3 counts of first-degree murder of his wife, his 11-year-old son, and his 8-month-old daughter. All 3 of them on Christmas Day.
Just wrote this book. Tell me a little bit about what you cover in that book.
A little over 3 years ago, I used to weigh 518 pounds. I turned to
518?
518 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, well, I might as well make a muscle now. I went to a whole food plant-based diet, and I ended up losing over half my body weight.
And this is that same man just months before the murders on morning television, selling the world a story about how he had completely transformed his life. He was the beloved vegan chef, the motivational speaker, the man who had lost over 300 pounds and found God in a plate of vegetables, the poster child for second chances. But behind all of that, he was building towards something nobody saw coming. And by the time Christmas morning was over, 3 people who loved him were dead. By his own account, Anthony Milan Ross had spent most of his adult life weighing over 518 pounds. He described those years as suffocating, physically trapped, exhausted by the simplest things, watching his life pass him by from the sidelines. Then, around 2013, he attended a week-long plant-based eating program offered through Whole Foods, and something in him apparently shifted. By late 2017, he had lost over 300 pounds through a strict plant-based vegan diet, and he turned that story into a whole career.
Life is looking good for Milan Ross these days.
What's up, this is Milan Ross. I'm in my home gym. It is Thanksgiving Day. Before getting my grub on, I got in here because my sweetheart made me and get a workout in.
Hey, this is Marlon. I'm sitting in the airport here in Phoenix, headed to upstate New York, to the Esselstyn's farm for plant stock. Guys, if you're coming, I can't wait to meet everybody. If you didn't get tickets this year, because of course it's sold out.
He was on Good Morning Arizona, sitting down for interview after interview on 12 News, hosting packed cooking classes, giving motivational talks at wellness events across the country. He co-wrote a book with physician Dr. Scott Stoll called The Change, Transforming Yourself and Your Body into the Person You Want to Be. And he appeared in a feature documentary called Eating You Alive alongside celebrities including Samuel L. Jackson. His Instagram handle was @MilanRoss_INC, and his bio listed him as a TV personality, author, lifestyle coach, and motivational speaker. On every platform and in every room he walked into, the story checked out.
A little over 3 years ago, I used to weigh 518 pounds. I turned to
518?
518 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, well, I might as well make a muscle now. I went to a whole food plant-based diet, and I ended up losing over half my body weight. And so the book chronicles my journey through that process.
How was it to transition over from what you were eating before, which sounds like probably everything, to whole food plant-based?
It was a challenge, but what I've learned is my taste buds have experienced something that they never experienced before.
But here's the thing about Anthony Milan Ross that almost nobody in Phoenix knew. Before any of this, before the cameras and the cooking classes and the book deal, he had been married before to a woman named Nicole, and they had 4 daughters together in Missouri. In 2003, he walked out on all of them, packed up, moved to Arizona, and started over as if that entire family did not exist. He never told anyone about them, not his new wife, his new children, or the people watching his interviews and buying his books. Nicole filed for divorce in St. Louis in 2008, 5 years after he vanished, and according to court papers, her efforts to even find him had been unsuccessful.
Kept us a secret, a dark, dirty secret.
That family, 4 girls and a wife, abandoned in Missouri back in 2003. Court documents show their mother, Nicole Ross, filing for divorce in St. Louis 5 years later. Her earnest, diligent attempts to locate him unsuccessful.
2 of those daughters, Shalonda and Ebony Ross, came forward publicly after the murders and told 12 News what life with their father had actually looked like. Shalonda said she went through punching, choking and slapping, and that there were times she had to stay home from school until the bruises faded enough that nobody would ask questions.
His eldest, Shalonda Ross,
Punching, choking, slapping.
telling 12 News she still has nightmares of the days staying home from school until the bruises were gone.
And then there is what Ebony described, which is almost hard to process when you think about who this man was presenting himself as. Ross, the man famous for preaching the healing power of food, had spent an entire year using food as a weapon against his own children. He restricted their bathroom breaks, kept them locked in their room, and fed them almost nothing while he walked past and blew the smell of hot food in their faces to taunt them.
He would withhold food from us,
Is a reminder of the torture they suffered as children.
blow the smell of the chili cheese dogs in our face. We would only get butter and sugar rice for that entire year.
That man then moved to Phoenix, reinvented himself as a wellness icon, and in 2009 married a woman named Iris Sutherland. And this is where the story really starts, because Iris deserves to be known as a full person, not just a victim. Iris was a healthcare administrator and director of the Outpatient Surgery Center at St. Joseph's Hospital and Medical Center in Phoenix. Her family said she was inspired by Mother Teresa, that her kindness was not something she put on for show, it was just who she was. She and Ross had 2 children together, their son Nigel, who everyone described as a big personality, a dancer, an artist, a really cool kid, and their daughter Honora, who was just about 8 months old in December of 2017 and had her whole life still in front of her. Publicly, Ross used Nigel constantly in his transformation story. He talked about the moment at Universal Studios when he realized he could not keep up with his son, fit into the rides, or be the kind of father he wanted to be, and how that became the thing that pushed him to change. By late 2017, he was telling 12 News that he had gone from sitting in a yard chair playing catch for 5 minutes to actively coaching Nigel's sports teams. The Father of the Year story was a key part of what made people love him.
3.5 years ago, he weighed more than 500 pounds. He claims he decided to make a change for his son, Nigel.
He started crying. In that moment, I learned that the decisions I was making didn't just affect me.
What Ross left out of those interviews was that Iris was the actual one holding the household together financially, earning roughly 5 times what he made. She was the one whose income was quietly paying for the lifestyle he was selling to the world. And in June of 2017, Iris decided she was done. She filed for divorce. She wasn't trying to take his children or destroy his career. The split was described as a relatively calm, with shared custody of both kids. She was simply ending the marriage. But that was apparently enough to break something in Anthony Ross. Because after the divorce filing, Iris's sister Mary Wogus watched him swing back and forth between screaming at Iris, calling her names, demeaning her in every way he could think of, and then in the very next moment professing his love and begging her to come back, calling himself part of the family. Mary also told reporters that Ross claimed he was working with a voodoo priest in New Orleans to put a curse on Iris, and that his behavior in those months was, in her words, very, very dark. Iris reportedly never believed he would actually go after the children. She still brought them to see him and still showed up. On the night of Christmas Eve, December 24, 2017, Ross posted a video of himself and Nigel singing "Santa Claus is Coming to Town" to his business Facebook page. He wrote a lighthearted caption about how they were about to embarrass themselves, and over 235,000 people watched it and smiled. It looked like a father and son enjoying the holidays. Nobody watching that video could have known what was already in motion.
You better watch out.
You better not cry.
Ross posted this heartwarming video with his 11-year-old son Nigel just 90 minutes before he allegedly shot and killed the boy, his 10-month-old daughter Honora, and his estranged wife Iris in a murderous rampage. When police arrived on the scene, they found Iris's body outside the upscale building.
The next morning, Christmas Day, Iris drove to Ross's apartment near 16th Street and Highland Avenue in central Phoenix to pick up the children. It was supposed to be a simple handoff, but the two of them ended up in a conversation in the parking lot about the marriage, and Iris told Ross she was not going to take him back. Right there in that parking lot, with her children waiting for her, Ross pulled out a gun and shot Iris multiple times as she tried to run away from him. After she fell to the ground, he stood over her and kept shooting. Witnesses in the parking lot saw it happen. When a man and a woman from the complex walked over and asked if Iris was okay, Ross turned his gun on both of them, told them no, and chased them off before going back inside the building. He was not done. He went upstairs to the apartment. He shot 8-month-old Honora inside. Then he found Nigel, and when the 11-year-old raised his hand in front of his own face trying to shield himself, Ross shot him too. Neighbors who heard the gunshots were already calling 911, and Phoenix police arrived to find Iris's body lying in the parking lot. Ross barricaded himself inside the apartment and refused to come out. A standoff between him and law enforcement stretched on for several hours. During that time, he told negotiators at one point that he had shot the children, then changed his story and claimed they were tied up inside, apparently still playing games while his kids were already gone.
They negotiated unsuccessfully for several hours and eventually sent a robot in to try to check on the welfare of the children, and the robot made it to the second floor of the third floor, or three-story apartment, and saw the 10-month-old victim clearly deceased, laying on the floor.
Officers then began cutting holes through the walls of the apartment next door to try to reach Ross and find Nigel. The moment they started breaking through, Ross opened fire directly at them. 19 officers were trying to get inside when he was shooting at them through the walls, and one officer took a bullet to the shoulder and had to be pulled out of the building. Ross kept firing until he ran out of ammunition. When there was nothing left in the gun, he gave up and walked out. Officers found Nigel inside. He was gone too. And here is a detail that says everything you need to know about where Anthony Milan Ross's head was at in those moments. After he shot Iris and before he went back inside, the witnesses who watched it happen saw him going through her pants pockets. When investigators asked him about it later, he said he was looking for the key fob to her car because her vehicle was blocking his in the parking lot and he had been planning to leave. His wife's body was on the ground in front of him and he was thinking about moving his car. Ross was arrested on the spot and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, along with nearly 20 counts of aggravated assault for shooting at police officers.
On these counts, you are here, sir, on 3 counts of murder in the first degree, Class 1 felonies, 19 counts of aggravated assault on officers, Class 5 felonies, 2 counts of aggravated assault, Class 6 felonies, and 1 count of discharge of a firearm in the city limits, a Class 6 felony.
Once investigators got into his phone, what they found made it very hard to believe any of this was a spontaneous breakdown. Ross had been searching online for information on guns, silencers, battery acid, sulfuric acid, and news articles about other family killings that had happened on Christmas Day. They also found text messages he reportedly sent to family members in the days before Christmas, in which he told people to expect something big on Christmas. And the Christmas Eve video he posted singing with Nigel, which had felt warm and innocent to everyone watching, was presented by prosecutors as something else entirely. A calculated move to make himself look like a loving father right before he killed his family, so that later he could claim he had snapped rather than planned. Ross pleaded not guilty in January of 2018, and then the case sat in the courts for nearly 8 years, held up by the pandemic, by mental health evaluations, by the complexity of the evidence, while Iris's family waited. By September of 2025, the trial finally began in Maricopa County Superior Court. Prosecutor Richard Dusterhoft laid out the prosecution's argument from the very first day. Anthony Milan Ross did not snap. The internet searches, the statements he made to people before Christmas, the staged cheerful video with Nigel 90 minutes before he killed him, all of it pointed to a man who had decided what he was going to do and then set the scene to make it look like something else. The prosecution also put the evidence of his first family in front of the jury. The daughter's accounts of beatings, starvation, and psychological torture were presented as what the law calls prior bad acts, meaning evidence that this was a pattern of behavior and not a one-time collapse. A forensic psychologist familiar with the case, Dr. Leslie Dobson, said in coverage that the choking and strangling of his earlier children was, in her words, a 100% precursor in domestic violence to murder, and that a man like Ross kills his own children, it is often because those children are the thing the woman he is trying to hurt cares most about. Prosecutors backed that up directly. Deputy County Attorney Jordan Uglietta told the court this is who he was, has always been, is, and always will be as a person.
The defense did not argue that Ross was innocent. Their argument was that he was not thinking clearly when he did it. They told the jury he suffered from serious mental illness, including bipolar disorder, severe depression, and emotional dysregulation, and that he had drunk roughly half a bottle of whiskey on Christmas Day before any of this happened. They pointed to some of his browser searches as evidence of forward-looking thinking, things like researching how to adopt a dog or proposing to a girlfriend, and argued that this was not a man planning to kill, it was a man who was mentally falling apart. Their core message was that reduced moral culpability is not the same as criminal responsibility, and they asked the jury for mercy. The jury did not give it to him. On or around November 3rd and 4th of 2025, they found Ross guilty on all 3 counts of first-degree murder, along with the aggravated assault charges. Then came the penalty phase, where a separate jury would decide whether he would spend the rest of his life in prison or be sentenced to death. Before the verdict was even read on May 7th of 2026, something happened in that courtroom that gave Iris's sister Laura Sutherland the answer before it was official.
A social media star who murdered his family in 2017 will die for his crimes.
Anthony Milan Ross sentenced to death in Maricopa County Superior Court this morning. But the question is, when will justice be served here? 12 News journalist William Pitts in that courtroom as that sentence was handed down. Will?
Yeah, you can't predict a sentencing, especially when it comes to the death penalty. But there was one clue before the hearing even started that told his family members how this was going to turn out. It only takes one juror to vote for life in prison instead of death. Before the verdict was read, the jury sent the judge a question.
Would it be possible for a defendant to stand when sentence is being read?
That sealed it in my mind as well.
Laura Sutherland knew right then Anthony Milan Ross would die for killing her sister.
He deserves to die. He doesn't deserve to be on this, or he doesn't deserve to breathe. I just wish they could do it sooner.
In 2017, Ross met up with his estranged wife, Iris, then shot her multiple times outside the apartment. Then he went in and shot his 11-year-old son, Nigel, and 8-month-old daughter, Adora. He spent hours barricaded in the apartment before being arrested.
I can't imagine anybody making any other decision after, planning, premeditating, and he had to think about what he was doing before he walked back in the house and killed the baby, and then walk up the set of stairs and killed Nigel.
Ross was a viral social media celebrity, a vegan chef who lost a lot of weight and posted videos on social media. But in trial, prosecutors say it was all a lie. They say he was obsessed with the idea of being famous, financing it with his wife's money. She filed for divorce in 2017, and 6 months later, Ross killed his entire family.
The hardest thing was listening to the defense, to try and make excuses for his behavior.
Ross's attorney said he had mental health issues, depression, paranoia. Laura Sutherland didn't buy any of it.
It's been 9 years I waited for this. Actually, today, such a relief. I feel like he got what he deserved.
Now, Ross didn't show any reaction at all when the sentence was handed down. One of the jurors, though, had tears streaming down his cheeks. All of them, though, affirmed that verdict. Now, Ross does get an automatic appeal, and in Arizona, it's taking more or less 20 to 25 years for an execution. Ross, right now, is 53 years old.
The jury came back unanimous with death on all 3 murder counts. Ross also received 18 years in prison for the assault charges against the officers. He sat in court in a dark suit and a medical mask and showed no reaction at all when the sentence was read. One of the jurors had tears running down his face as all of them held the verdict. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell said publicly, "This defendant was supposed to protect his family. Instead, he made a deliberate choice to take their lives on Christmas Day when his wife wouldn't take him back. Today's sentence reflects the gravity of what he did, and he deserves the ultimate punishment. In Arizona, the automatic appeal process means executions can take 20 to 25 years to actually happen. Anthony Milan Ross is 53 years old. Now, here's the part that will really make you think, because Anthony Milan Ross is not the first man to stand behind a carefully built public image, explode when a woman decided to leave, and then take it out on the people who had nothing to do with his ego. In August of 2018, just 8 months after the Ross murders, a Colorado man named Chris Watts strangled his pregnant wife, Shanann, and then smothered his 2 young daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste. Like Ross, Watts had a carefully maintained image of the perfect family man. He had been having an affair with a coworker and wanted out of the marriage so he could start a new life, and when Shanann came home from a business trip, he killed her while she was 15 weeks pregnant, then drove the bodies of his daughters to an oil field where he worked and submerged the girls in crude oil storage tanks. He reported his family missing the next day and gave emotional interviews to news cameras pleading for their return, all while knowing exactly where the bodies were.
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back.
Police arrested Watts within days after his story fell apart under surveillance footage, phone records, and evidence of his affair. In a prison interview months later, he admitted that his daughters had been alive during the drive to the oil field, and that 4-year-old Bella had fought back and asked him if he was going to do to her what he had already done to her sister. Watts pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty and received 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of ever getting out.
Chris Watts is starting his first week in his new prison, wherever that is.
The Frederick man who murdered his family was transported out of state. The location will not be released. Contact 7 investigates Jace Larson broke the story and continues his reporting tonight on why Watts was moved in the first place.
The state tells me that Watts was moved because now that he's so famous, there are safety concerns. And we're talking about his safety, but also the safety of corrections officers who have to be close to him as he moves about the prison. And it turns out that moving a prisoner out of state is not all that uncommon. Colorado currently has 104 prisoners that are housed in other states.
The parallels between these two cases go deeper than just the headline. Both men were projecting a version of themselves to the public that had nothing to do with who they actually were. The difference is that a jury looked at what Anthony Milan Ross did, looked at everything that came before it, and decided that a life sentence was not enough. They gave him death. What gets me about this case is how long the mask held. Anthony Milan Ross convinced thousands of people that he was proof that any person could change for the better. And in a way, he was right. A person can absolutely change. The problem is that a performance is not the same as change, and you cannot outrun who you actually are. So here is the question I want to leave you with. How well do you really know the people in your life who seem to have everything figured out? If this story moved you, hit the card on screen right now because there's something up there you don't want to miss. See you in the next one.